Imagine two people start their careers in the same city, in the same year, earning almost the same salary. 10 years later, one of them wakes up naturally on a calm morning. No alarm clock. No rush. He walk into the kitchen, make a cup of coffee, and sit quietly by the window knowing something powerful, that he could stop working tomorrow if he wanted to. The other person wakes up very differently. His first alarm rings at 6:30 in the morning. He hits snooze. 9 minutes later, the second alarm rings. Snooze again. The third alarm finally forces him to get out of the bed. Before his feet even touch the floor, he grabs his phone and opens his banking app. A quick check to make sure everything is still okay. But the shocking part is mortgage payment coming up. Car payment next week. Credit card bill due soon. Nothing is technically wrong. But the feeling is always the same. Pressure. Here's the strange part of this story. But before we continue, I want to quickly say something important. My name is Marsh, and I am not a financial advisor. This video is purely for educational purposes only. Always consult a qualified professional before making any major financial decisions. Now both of these people earned almost the exact same income over the last 10 years. Neither one won the lottery. Neither inherited wealth. Neither discovered some secret investment that made them suddenly rich. Yet their lives look completely different. One has calm mornings and financial breathing room. The other feels like he is constantly running just to keep up. One has options. The other has obligations. And if you're wondering which one most people eventually become, the answer might surprise you. It's usually the second one. Because staying broke has surprisingly little to do with how much money someone earns. In fact, many people earning very good salaries still feel financially stressed. The real difference often comes from something much quieter, the small decisions that shape what happens to money after it enters someone's life. Today I want to tell you the story of two people who started from almost the exact same position but slowly walked down two completely different financial paths. And by the end of this story, you might realize something uncomfortable. You might realize that many people are already walking on one of those paths without even noticing it. Because the difference between these two lives didn't start with a huge financial decision. It started with something very small. Their very first paycheck. Let's go back to the beginning of the story. 10 years earlier, two friends had just graduated from college and moved to the same city to start their careers. Their names were Alex and Jordan. They studied similar subjects, applied to many of the same companies, and eventually both landed solid entry-level jobs. Their starting salaries were almost identical, around $70,000 a year. For someone fresh out of college, that felt like a big step into adulthood. Suddenly there was real income, real independence, and the exciting feeling that life was finally beginning. At first, their lifestyles looked almost exactly the same. They both rented apartments in the same general area of the city. They both bought basic furniture. They both enjoyed going out with friends on weekends. They both started adjusting to the rhythm of adult life, work during the week, social time on the weekends, and slowly learning how to manage responsibilities that didn't exist during college. But something interesting happened when their very first paychecks arrived. Alex looked at that paycheck and had a thought that many people naturally have when they begin earning real money. Finally, I can start upgrading my life. It felt like a reward. After years of studying, working part-time jobs, and living on a tight student budget, Alex wanted life to feel a little more comfortable. So Alex began making small improvements. A nicer phone replaced the older one from college. The apartment furniture became a little more stylish. The car that had survived college years was traded in for something newer and more reliable. None of these decisions looked extreme. In fact, most people around Alex were doing very similar things. Jordan looked at that first paycheck and had a slightly different thought. Jordan thought, "This is the beginning of my future." Jordan still enjoyed the excitement of earning money, but instead of immediately upgrading everything, Jordan made a quieter decision. The old phone still worked fine, so it stayed. The used car from college still drove perfectly well, so there was no rush to replace it. The apartment stayed simple. Jordan wasn't trying to avoid spending money completely. Jordan simply wanted to build stability first. From the outside, these differences looked tiny. If you had visited their apartments during that first year, you might have even assumed Alex was doing better financially. But what nobody could see yet was that two completely different financial habits had just been planted. And just like seeds in the ground, those habits were about to grow quietly over the next few years. During that first year, the difference between Alex and Jordan didn't look dramatic at all. In fact, if you walked into their apartments, you might have thought Alex was the one doing better in life. Alex's place looked impressive for someone just starting a career. There was a large television mounted on the wall, modern furniture that looked straight out of a showroom, and smart gadgets that made the apartment feel high-tech and comfortable. Outside in the parking there's Alex's newer car, shiny and clean, something that felt like a reward after years of driving an old college vehicle. Friends who visited often said things like, "Wow, you're doing really well." And Alex believed them. Because from the outside, it looked like success. Jordan's place looked different. Not bad, just simpler. The furniture was basic. Some of it was secondhand. The television was smaller. The car parked outside had clearly been on the road for several years. Nothing about Jordan's lifestyle screamed success. In fact, some people quietly assumed Jordan must not be earning as much money. But what those people couldn't see was what happened quietly every month after Jordan's paycheck arrived. Alex's money had a job too, but most of that job was paying for the lifestyle upgrades that had slowly appeared during the year. The car payment. The slightly higher rent for a nicer apartment. The streaming services. The delivery apps that made life easier after long workdays. None of these expenses felt dangerous. Each one seemed small and reasonable. But something subtle was happening in the background. Every dollar Alex earned was slowly getting assigned to maintain the life Alex had built. Jordan's money followed a different path. The moment Jordan's paycheck arrived, a portion quietly moved somewhere else before it could even be touched. Some went into savings. Some went into investments. Some simply stayed untouched as a financial cushion. Jordan still paid rent, bought groceries, went out with friends, and enjoyed life. But there was one quiet rule Jordan followed from the very beginning. Future security always came first. Lifestyle improvements could wait. If you looked at their lives during that first year, the difference between Alex and Jordan seemed almost invisible. But financial habits behave a lot like gravity. You don't notice them at first. Yet slowly, over time, they start pulling their life in a specific direction. And 5 years later, the direction Alex and Jordan were heading would begin to reveal itself in ways either of them fully expected. Now fast forward about 5 years. Alex and Jordan are no longer new to the workforce. They've both gained experience, built stronger careers, and naturally their salaries have grown. Alex is now earning close to $100,000 a year. Jordan is earning almost the same amount. On paper, both of them look successful. They have stable jobs, steady income, and the kind of professional progress most people hope for during their late 20s and early 30s. But if you look a little closer, their financial lives are starting to feel very different. Alex's lifestyle has continued to grow with every raise. The apartment upgrade eventually became a bigger place with higher rent. The newer car from the first year was replaced with an even newer one. Technology upgrades became routine, new phone every few years, new gadgets, nicer furniture. None of these things seemed irresponsible. In fact, they felt normal. After all, Alex was earning good money. And when life gets busy, spending money to make things easier can feel completely reasonable. Food delivery instead of cooking. Subscriptions that save time. Convenience purchases that make stressful weeks feel manageable. But something subtle had happened over those 5 years. Every time Alex's income increased, the lifestyle quietly expanded to match it. So even though Alex now earned more money than ever before, the feeling of being financially comfortable still hadn't fully arrived. At the end of most months, there were still bills waiting. Rent, car payments, insurance, credit card balances that slowly came and went. When unexpected expenses appeared, like medical bills, travel emergencies, or car repairs, they didn't feel like minor inconveniences. They felt stressful. Jordan's life had changed too, but in a quieter way. Jordan had allowed lifestyle to improve gradually, but not as quickly as income. The older car was eventually replaced, but with something practical. The apartment became slightly nicer, but it didn't stretch the budget. And something powerful had started happening in the background. Jordan now had a growing emergency fund. Several months of living expenses sitting safely in the bank. Investments that had slowly been building for years were beginning to show meaningful growth. The numbers weren't enormous yet. But something much more important had appeared. Breathing room. And while Alex and Jordan were still living in the same city and earning similar salaries, the direction of their financial futures was starting to separate. If these patterns continued for another 5 years, the difference between them wouldn't just be noticeable. It would be life-changing. Now imagine another 5 years pass. Alex and Jordan are now 10 years into their careers. Both of them are earning well into 6 figures, something their younger selves once dreamed about when they first started working. If you met them briefly at a social gathering, you might assume they were both thriving. They both have professional jobs, nice places to live, and the kind of lifestyle many people aim for. But the truth beneath the surface is very different. Alex's life still looks impressive from the outside. The house is larger now. The car parked in the driveway is newer and more expensive than the previous one. Vacations have become more luxurious. Life appears comfortable, maybe even successful. But something inside Alex's financial life feels heavier than it did 10 years ago. The mortgage payment is large. The car payments are constant. Insurance, property taxes, and everyday expenses have grown alongside the bigger lifestyle. Every month requires a strong income just to keep everything running smoothly. If Alex's job suddenly disappeared, the entire structure of expenses would become a serious problem within a few months. The lifestyle that once felt like success has quietly turned into something else. It has become a system that requires constant income just to survive. Jordan's life moved in a different direction. Jordan's income also increased during those 10 years, but something important happened along the way. The gap between income and spending slowly grew wider every year. Investments that started small had 10 years to compound. The emergency fund grew stronger. Retirement accounts expanded quietly in the background. Jordan still works and still earns good money. But work now feels different. Work is no longer the only thing holding life together. Jordan now has something Alex doesn't have. Options. Jordan could take time off if needed. Jordan could explore a new career opportunity without immediate financial panic. Jordan could handle unexpected problems without the feeling that everything might collapse. 10 years earlier, Alex appeared to be the one doing better in life. The nicer car. The upgraded lifestyle. The visible success. But 10 years later, Jordan has something far more powerful than appearances. Jordan has control. And the surprising part of this story is that it didn't happen because Jordan earned dramatically more money. The difference came from a few simple financial principles that quietly shaped every decision along the way. And once you understand those principles, you start to see why so many people can earn great money and still remain financially stuck. At first glance, Alex and Jordan's story might sound like it's simply about discipline or personality. Some people might say Jordan was just naturally better with money. But the truth is much more practical than that. Jordan wasn't smarter, luckier, or more talented. Jordan simply followed a few quiet rules about money that most people never stopped to think about. The first rule was simple but powerful. Lifestyle should grow slower than income. Most people do the opposite. When their salary increases, they immediately upgrade their life to match it. A raise arrives and suddenly there's a nicer apartment, a newer car, or more monthly expenses. This process is called lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the biggest reasons people earning 6 figures still feel broke. Jordan avoided this trap by allowing life to improve slowly while keeping spending comfortably below income. The second rule was something many financially stable people practice without even thinking about it: pay yourself first. Every time Jordan received a paycheck, a portion automatically moved into savings and investments before any spending happened. That meant Jordan's future was always funded first. Whatever money remained could then be used for rent, groceries, and entertainment. Most people reverse this order. They spend first and save whatever is left, which often turns out to be nothing. Jordan flipped that pattern. The third rule was about upgrades. Alex often replaced things simply because newer versions existed. A new phone, better gadgets, updated furniture. None of these purchases were terrible individually, but together they created a pattern of constant spending. Jordan approached upgrades differently. If something still worked well, it stayed. Not forever, but long enough to extract real value from it. This mindset prevented thousands of dollars from quietly disappearing every year. The fourth rule was defining what enough looked like. Most people never do this. Without a clear definition of enough, spending becomes an endless race. There will always be a bigger house, a nicer car, or a more expensive vacation. Jordan decided early that comfort mattered, but endless upgrades didn't necessarily create more happiness. And the fifth rule may be the most important of all. Jordan understood that money isn't just about buying things. Money is about buying options. The ability to handle emergencies. The ability to leave stressful situations. The ability to shape your life without constant financial pressure. But the real power behind these rules wasn't the rules themselves. It was something working quietly in the background. Compounding. The real reason Jordan's life began changing so dramatically after 10 years wasn't because of one big decision. It was because of hundreds of small decisions quietly stacking on top of each other. And those small decisions were powered by something that most people hear about, but very few truly experience in their lives. Compounding. Compounding is a simple idea, but it behaves in a way that feels almost magical over long periods of time. Imagine planting a tiny tree in your backyard. In the first year, it barely grows. In the second year, it grows a little more. For a while, the progress seems slow and almost boring. But underneath the surface, something powerful is happening. The roots are growing deeper. The trunk is getting stronger. And after enough time passes, that small tree becomes something much larger and stronger than you expected. Money works in a very similar way. When Jordan started saving and investing small amounts during the first year of working, the results didn't look impressive. In fact, if someone had compared Alex and Jordan during those early years, Alex's life probably looked more exciting and comfortable. Alex had the nicer car, the upgraded apartment, the visible signs of success. Jordan's money, meanwhile, was sitting quietly in accounts that didn't create obvious lifestyle upgrades. But while Alex's money was being spent, Jordan's money was being planted. Every month those small investments grew a little. And that growth slowly began creating even more growth. Over time, the snowball became larger and larger. But compounding doesn't only work with investments. It also works with habits. Alex's spending habits compounded too, just in the opposite direction. Every upgrade created a slightly higher monthly expense. Every new expense required slightly more income to support it. Over time, Alex's lifestyle quietly locked Alex into needing the next raise, the next promotion, the next paycheck. Jordan built a different system. Jordan built a system where time slowly worked in their favor. Every year that passed made life a little more secure instead of a little more expensive. And this is why the gap between the two paths becomes larger with time. In the beginning, the difference between Alex and Jordan looked small. But 10 years later, that small difference became massive. And if another 10 years passed, the gap would grow even wider. Which leads to a simple but important question. Which path are you walking on right now? If you go back to the beginning of this story, Alex and Jordan started in almost the exact same place. Same generation. Same city. Similar income. Similar opportunities. Nothing about their starting point guaranteed that one would end up financially secure while the other would feel constantly stressed about money. The difference wasn't luck. It wasn't intelligence. And it definitely wasn't the size of their paycheck. The difference was direction. Alex slowly built a life that looked impressive but required constant income to support it. Each upgrade seemed small and reasonable at the time. A nicer car, a larger apartment, newer gadgets, more comfortable choices. But every upgrade quietly added another responsibility, another monthly payment, another expense that had to be maintained. Over time, the lifestyle that once felt exciting began to feel heavy. Not because Alex was irresponsible, but because the system itself required constant income just to keep running. Jordan built something different. Jordan didn't avoid comfort or enjoyment. Instead, Jordan made sure that freedom grew alongside lifestyle instead of falling behind it. Every small financial decision created a little more breathing room, a little more security, a little more control over the future. And over time, those quiet decisions turned into something incredibly valuable. Not just money. Freedom. Freedom is often misunderstood when people talk about personal finance. Many people think freedom only comes from becoming extremely rich. But real financial freedom usually looks much simpler than that. It means having enough stability that money stops controlling every decision in your life. It means handling unexpected problems without panic. It means having the ability to step away from work that drains you. It means making life decisions based on your values instead of your bills. And the path toward that freedom rarely begins with a huge salary. It begins with small choices. The choice to live slightly below your income. The choice to save before spending. The choice to think about long-term freedom instead of short-term upgrades. Those choices may look small today, but over time, they quietly shape the kind of life you wake up to 10 years from now. So the real question becomes simple. Starting today, which direction are your choices taking you?